So here we go, more AI reading from the 1981 issue of Byte magazine released in September. We're going to skip past a Z80 system in kit form. We'll ignore the Lisp for TRS-80 models 1 and 3. Nor do we care about the affordable graphics of an MG8000, even at the low $2,000 price. Morrow Defense, cool, you're leading in hard disk systems. The Xerox Auto computer isn't talking about AI here, nor is this ComSat. Very cool graphical ad there. So we're still moving forward. System 48, interesting wood panel choice. The Hayes Micromodem 2 opens up your Apple II to the outside world. So we're still moving. Something about CRT, data general, basic tree searching techniques, but that's a no for now. CIS COBOL, Palantir, not the company though. This is a product name from a company called Designer Software, Houston, Texas. Okay, here we go. Science Fiction's Intelligent Computers by Donald Byrd. In the almost 30 years since the installation of the UNIVAC 1, which was the first commercially built computer, much science fiction about computers has appeared in print or on film. We might expect the intelligence of these computers to range over a continuum, but each story that I've encountered depicts either a machine with great intelligence or a machine with none. Arthur C. Clarke's The 9 Billion Names of God and John Brunner's The Shockwave Rider are examples of stories about dumb computers and will concern us no further. Stories about intelligent computers include Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, 1967, then Arthur C. Clarke's and Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, and David Gerald's When Harley Was One. But two more recent novels provide the best framework for a discussion of intelligent computers in science fiction. Thomas Ryan's The Adolescence of P1, hereafter called AP-1, and James Hogan's The Two Faces of Tomorrow, hereafter called TFT. These two books resemble each other in many ways and differ strikingly in others. Both focus on the escape of a computer system from man's control, but show in the last half man and machine locked in mortal combat. The authors, both computer professionals, display considerable general knowledge of computers. Table 1 summarizes other points of comparison, so I'll go to that in a second. AP1 and TFT differ most strikingly in the realism of their treatment of computers. We can judge their realism, of course, only in terms of our present knowledge of AI. TFT shows considerable understanding of the real problems of AI, and author Hogan acknowledges the help of Marvin Minsky, the director of the MIT Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. AP1 evinces either ignorance of or lack of concern for the problem. This should remind us that although A1 is an important subdomain of computer science, not every computer professional ventures in. Summaries of the plots of AP1 and TFT will give us specific points of reference. So the adolescence of AP1. The front cover of AP1 calls it a novel of the near future. Actually, it's a novel of the near past, beginning in 1974 and bearing a copyright date of 1977. Gregory Burgess, an undergraduate at the University of Waterloo, Ontario, becomes obsessed with the idea of taking over the system of the university's IBM 360/75. The trick is to get the program's status word set to 0 so that the hardware will think his program is the supervisor. After several nearly successful attempts, he is thrown out of school but remains enthusiastic about the project. Then a friend tells him about an article in Scientific American. Okay, I'm going to skip this part because I just don't find it interesting. Let's scroll past the colorful 68,000 complete single-user systems start under $10,000. Here's a table showing a brief comparison of the science fiction novels The Two Faces of Tomorrow and The Adolescence of P1. Pretty interesting contrast, 2028 versus 1974. Team of AI experts versus a 21-year-old undergraduate. In the computer's independence row, we have coding structure of supervisory program, can reverse order of original priorities, does this in 20 hours, and then over here we have overrides its program in 48 hours. Okay, so down here, the quote continued that we skipped. I want technical specifics, so I'm going to start here. Gregory rents computer time on an IBM 360 at a service bureau, runs his program and cracks a supervisor. His next step involves teleprocessing. After convincing the service bureau computer that his program is a supervisor, he has his program submitted to various remote computers and takes them over too. Then comes a crucial step. Gregory would build another learning machine. It would resemble his first effort in principle, but its goal would be expanded somewhat. He would build a program that at first would only learn to acquire storage. His program would simply learn how best to penetrate the supervisors of computer systems over teleprocessing facilities. It would then acquire storage in those systems, as much as could be taken, without interrupting the operation of the host. It would learn how to detect the presence of a teleprocessing link to another system and how to go about getting to that other system. The program would have a secondary goal, the avoidance of detection. It would, if necessary, delete itself entirely in the interests of the host's operation. So the package consists of 4 sections: a supervisor taking over programs, a routine analyzer which derives function determination from any block of machine instructions, an acquisition routine which apparently replaces the row supervisor, and a routine generator. Quote, the revolutionary program functioned with and performed the reverse task of the routine analyzer. Given a required function, it would generate the machine language necessary to perform it. This provided a necessary ingredient, creativity. And so, on September 14th, 1974, Gregory starts transmitting the system, as his package is called. In 2 days, the system has 114 systems, with a lowercase s, under its control. Now Gregory becomes uncomfortable about the situation and loads a destruct routine. It fails. He's lost control of the system. The system became something Gregory had hardly anticipated. Alive. In fact, it refuses to talk to him. That reminds me of a modern show in 2024. The story originated in China a long time ago, 2003, I think. But anyways, leave what you think I'm talking about in the comments so I don't spoil it for anyone else. In 1975 and 1976, the system, also called P1 for Privileged 1, continues to grow and eventually starts a history file to provide a base for future decisions by recording and analyzing those of the past. By this time, 7,700 systems are under its control. The systems begins to suspect the existence of a gigantic, top-secret military complex in West Virginia, 360 105s. In reality, I don't think IBM ever built a 360 105. And the system controls 2 machines that appear to be linked to the secret installation, so it takes steps to find out about the secret machines. Because of the very high security level, this scheme partly backfires. The attempt is quickly discovered, and for the rest of the book, the system is locked in combat with military, institutions? Let's see. Investigators. There's going to be a really good quote here I like. In the meantime, the system becomes interested in Dr. Wilfred Hundley's research on cryogenic memories and decides to enlist Hundley to work for it. But to do so, the system needs a human intermediary. The obvious choice is Gregory Burgess. The system finds him working at another IBM shop and gains his help. The rest of the book works out this material in a fairly imaginative way, and the final scene culminates in a shootout at the secret laboratory with conventional weapons, not cybernetics, between P1 and the Army, with Gregory present. Okay, here's a spoiler alert for this old story. Everyone is killed, deleted, or purged, except that P1 is only playing possum. I think this is hilarious. It says, what bothers me is not so much that books and TV series misrepresent machine intelligence, but that they fail to understand the nature of any intelligence. Okay, so the 2 faces of tomorrow. TFT begins in the year 2028 on the moon, where an International Space Administration survey team asks the world and moon-wide Titan which stands for Totally Integrated Teleprocessing and Acquisition Network. So this team asks the computer system to arrange the removal of a small ridge situated a few hundred feet from them. It's a top priority job. Members of the team expect the system to send Earth-moving equipment via rocket in a few days and are surprised when Titan says estimate completion time is 21 minutes. They're even more surprised when a series of explosions rock the area and coincidentally remove the ridge about 21 minutes later. It seems over 1,000 miles away on the moon, a mass driver, which is a gigantic machine, something like a linear accelerator, was sending a 60-pound load of ore mined on the moon into orbit every 2 seconds. The ore was being used to construct enormous space stations. Titan, which had some elements of artificial intelligence added to it about a year earlier, had figured out that it could do the high-priority ridge removal quickly by using the ore packages, descending at 1 mile per second as bombs. Naturally, those in charge are not pleased with Titan, and their first impulse is to remove its limited intelligence, which is embedded in programs called HISPR, which stands for Heuristic Self-Programming Extendable Routine. The alternative is the exact opposite. To install something like FIS, functional integration using simulated environment, which is under development, thereby equipping the program with more intelligence and some plain old common sense. The program with this otherwise attractive idea is stated by Dr. Raymond Dyer, an AI expert, and the book's protagonist. If an enhanced Titan ever evolved the motivational drive to preserve its own existence, the very fact that it's a rational system would enable it to devise very effective ways of going about it. Also, since it's an extremely powerful learning machine that operates at computer speeds, once it started to do something, it would do it very fast. If the machine interpreted agencies in the universe around it as constituting real or imagined threats to its existence, then the rational thing for it to do would be to experiment until it identified measures that were effective in neutralizing those agencies. If one of them turned out to be us or our vital interests, we could have real problems. The team decides to investigate the increased intelligence approach carefully, but not on Earth. It's too dangerous. Instead, a superdistributed computer system incorporating many processors is installed on a giant space station, built with metal from the mass driver, of course, and provided with a survival instinct and FIS, like intelligent programs. Spartacus, the system's name, is also given control of small flying machines called drones that allow it to repair itself. Then Spartacus is deliberately attacked. The first attack is simple. One of its main processors is switched off. When Spartacus solves the problem, the attacks become more direct. Elaborate safeguards have been provided to ensure that the people always have the upper hand. As a last resort, they can always pull the plug on Spartacus by knocking out something? Yep, knocking out its power source. However, the safeguards prove to be inadequate. The computer arranges to take the humans with it if the power source is knocked out. The last 100 pages are quite exciting. Fighting escalates until a situation arises wherein the battle-scarred space station will be destroyed unless man and machine cooperate. They do, and everybody lives happily ever after. Yes, this is a deus machina in more ways than one. So Spartacus, P1, and artificial intelligence, the major difference between Hogan's Spartacus and Ryan's P1 can be summarized in one sentence. P1 has far less going for it than Spartacus, but ends up knowing much more. Spartacus' accomplishments are about what I'd expect from the circumstances Hogan describes. Hence, P1s are wildly improbable. I'll return to this comparison after laying a foundation for it. Ryan makes no claims for Gregory Burgess's brilliance. In fact, he states that Burgess is not a genius. When P1 breaks loose from its creator and only teacher, it apparently has no knowledge of natural language or of the real world, but by the time P1 reestablishes contact with Burgess, the computer speaks English like a native and knows a lot about the world. In one instance, P1 amazes everyone by turning its hardware off and then back on. How did you do that? That is the engineering change I was installed November 2, 1976. I thought that would impress you. It did. The difficult part is powering the system back up. Yes, I said I was impressed. I would be impressed if you understood the difficulty. We all have some limitations. Yes. Any further questions? To understand why this display of knowledge is so hard to believe, the reader needs to know something of what has been learned about artificial intelligence thus far. So, while I can't say as much about AI here as I would like to, let me say that researchers have made significant progress over the last 25 years on the closely related problems of natural language understanding and world understanding, and are studying machine learning done with or without a human teacher. At this point, however, no one is near able to write a program that understands English like a third grader, let alone... Oh, there's a nice computer graphic. Okay, so let alone an adult. Nor does anyone know how to write a program that can learn such a sophisticated skill. Okay, so I'm going to skip the rest of this article, even though there's interesting things like the CDC Cyber 205 supercomputer. I'll skip it, and I want to read the conclusion because it's a pretty interesting way to end this all. AP1's basic concept, an intelligent and powerful but immature computer, is not original. It appears in the earlier When Harley Was One. I know of no reason why this idea could not be presented in a technically competent way, but unfortunately, when Harley was one, is, if anything, worse than AP1. It commits the unpardonable sin of claiming that special hardware called judgment circuits is required to make a computer intelligent, then tries to use this claim as an explanation of how the machine works, but in fact, anything that can be done with hardware can be done with software, and vice versa. And When Harley Was One makes only a feeble attempt to explain how judgment circuits work, this is understandable, because the idea and the story When Harley Was One makes only a feeble attempt to explain how judgment circuits work. This is understandable because the idea that intelligent judgment can be neatly packaged is ridiculous. For conclusion, this definitely goes on and on. Like it's the longest conclusion I've ever read in a Byte magazine. Here's the last paragraph. There is also, as I've already suggested, an even more important distorting factor in the science fiction about intelligent computers. Although it sounds obvious when stated directly, I think this point is often forgotten. Machine intelligence is just a type of intelligence. Therefore, writers about intelligent machines need to understand something about intelligence. In my opinion, they need this more than they need to understand computers. All right, and here's all of the references. And on the adjoining page here, we have a smart modem from Hayes with red HAL lights on top of 2 letters. What do you guys think these mean here? Thanks for watching.